Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into someone pretty remarkable, Wagner Moura. You probably know him as an actor, a big international star, right? But the material we're looking at today, it paints a different picture. It calls him the light of conscience, an artist really defined by morality, integrity, social awareness.
Yeah, the light of conscience. It sounds lofty, but it's actually a really useful way to look at his career. Our mission here really is to give you a shortcut, to understand why his choices, the roles he takes, and maybe even more importantly, the roles he turns down, why they're seen as these acts of resistance, political acts, moral acts. You'll get a real sense of conscious artistry on a global scale.
And it's fascinating because the key to understanding that compass, well, it comes from an unexpected place. Before acting, he was actually a journalist, got his degree from the Federal University of Bahia. And that training, it seems to have baked in this ethical drive, truth-telling, digging deep. It wasn't just school. It shaped how he looks at everything.
Absolutely. That journalistic mindset is like the perfect lens. He doesn't just see dialogue on a page, he sees a research project. Early on, he was all about diving into the psychology, the social context. Why? Because reality is complex, and he seems to demand that complexity in his work.
You really see that commitment in Carandiru. That was 2003, a major breakthrough. And talk about complex. It wasn't easy viewing. It confronted this huge, uncomfortable reality in Brazil, systemic violence in this massive prison. Specifically, the 1992 massacre, 111 people killed. The film just didn't look away.
No, it didn't. And he brought such humanity to that, to a story about total institutional failure. And then, of course, came Captain Nascimento and the Elite Squad movies. That role, well, that really cemented him as this essential provocateur in Brazilian cinema.
Okay, but wait. If his whole thing is truth and social justice, how do these sources square that with Nascimento? I mean, the character fights corruption, sure, but he's also embodying this brutal police violence. Isn't that, kind of reinforcing a stereotype, even if it's complex?
That's a really important question. And yeah, the analysis digs into that contradiction quite a bit. Nascimento is presented as this deeply moral guy, personally, but he's trapped, operating inside a system that's fundamentally corrupt, immoral. His brutality. It's shown less as heroism and as a symptom, right? A symptom of a disease state.
Okay, so the conflict is the point.
Exactly. That inner conflict, the struggle between his own justice code and the rotten system around him, that's what Moura portrayed. And it hit hard because it mirrored what so many Brazilians wrestle with, safety versus accountability, the police problem. It's not simple.
Right, makes sense. So his journalism training, it boils down to these questions he asked himself. Whose story is this? Why tell it now? What truth needs to come out? That's the difference, isn't it? Between just being an actor and being like a cultural advocate.
Precisely. And that ethical foundation, it got seriously tested when he blew up globally, especially after Narcos. He hit this major crossroads, Hollywood's calling, offering big money, but they wanted him to fit into a very specific, very, profitable box.
We all know that box. The narco stereotype. The sources make a big deal about this moment. After Narcos, the offers just flooded in. Easy roles, big paychecks. His moral clarity was really on the line.
And this is where the resistance part becomes really concrete and costly. The analysis highlights just how much money, how much potential career stability he put at risk by saying no. He actively rejected playing drug lords, generic criminals, these flat, one-dimensional villains over and over. Yeah, saying no to the easy path, the stereotype. It became this deliberate stand against how the industry often flattens Latin American identity just for easy consumption.
It's one thing to say no, but then he took it a step further. He decided to direct his own project, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Mariella. Yeah, that was maybe the ultimate test of this commitment to ethical storytelling. It tells the story of Carlos Mariella, a major figure fighting Brazil's military dictatorship back in the 60s. Now, for listeners maybe not familiar, you have to understand, this is an ancient history in Brazil. The dictatorship, 1964 to 85, it's still incredibly politically charged. And because it's so sensitive, the film ran into immediate trouble, big trouble. The sources detail how its release got held up for over a year by the National Film Agency in Brazil. You had right-wing politicians actively trying to censor it, especially around the very heated 2018 election.
And the irony, or maybe the tragedy, is stark. Here's a film about political persecution in the past, and it's facing political persecution now. The cost of his integrity was right there, out in the open. But he wouldn't back down on the narrative. He saw challenging that official history as part of the job, artistically.
And you see that same refusal to compromise elsewhere, too.
Yeah.
Like his role as the UN diplomat, Sergio Vieira de Mello in Sergio. He tackled the complexities of humanitarian work, didn't simplify it. Or even in this series, The Mechanism, exploring corruption, but with this kind of sober, investigative feel. No cheap melodrama.
And if you trace that moral core back, it goes deep into Brazil's own story. That long fight against authoritarianism, especially the dictatorship years, that's the wellspring. The sources call them living memories, not just history lessons. Real trauma, real resistance, still shaping things today, still pushing back against the official version.
It's fascinating how that plays out in his work. Like, take Orente Secreto.
Yeah.
That won him Best Actor at Cannes. It's this tense thriller, right? About a guy navigating surveillance, state spying back in the early 70s in Brazil. It's basically putting you right inside that pressure cooker of state control, the moral compromises.
Yeah, it really shows the psychological weight of living under that kind of power. But importantly, his commitment doesn't just stop at the acting or directing. He has this whole other track. Public advocacy. He uses his fame, his platform to talk about critical social issues, and really importantly, threats to democracy.
He's definitely not quiet about where he stands. The sources give clear examples, like protesting the impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff. Now, we should be clear, the analysis states that he and his supporters viewed that whole process as a parliamentary coup. It's reporting their perspective.
Exactly. That attribution is crucial for impartiality. But his advocacy goes beyond politics, too. Environmental issues are huge for him. He's very involved in defending the Amazon, not just making statements, but actually documenting the destruction, amplifying the voices of indigenous communities on the front lines.
And it's not just high-profile stuff either. He supports arts education for kids in favelas, grassroots commitment, plus the way he uses social media, strategically calling out corruption, authoritarian trends. It shows he sees art and direct action as linked, both needed for change.
Which brings us right back to this core idea from the analysis: identity and accountability in a global context.
Accountability. Accountability to who, exactly, in this framework?
To Brazil, primarily, to his homeland. The research really emphasizes this idea of local accountability. His global success, especially playing roles that could easily become cliches, doesn't happen in a bubble. His choices either reinforce or challenge how Brazil sees itself represented. He's constantly navigating that tension. Hollywood appeal versus authentic representation. He refuses to sell out his culture for easy consumption.
So refusing typecasting isn't just personal. It's a statement about cultural integrity on the world stage.
Exactly. And what's really powerful is how his work then connects these very Brazilian struggles to bigger global conversations. Issues that are relevant to you, listening right now, wherever you are. Think about digital surveillance, privacy rights themes right out of Orente Secreto. Think about environmental justice. Amazon is local, but its fate is global. Democratic backsliding, that's a pattern we see everywhere, unfortunately.
So the takeaway from these complex roles, it's not about easy answers. It's more that they push us, the audience, worldwide, to look at our own complicity, maybe, or the need for resistance, the cost of staying silent when things go wrong.
That's it, precisely. That's the conclusion drawn here. Moura's career demonstrates that a lasting artistic legacy, real moral leadership, they can actually drive change. True inspiration, the analysis suggests, comes when artists, or really anyone with influence, stick to their values, prioritize truth, even when it's inconvenient.
And that's a lesson that applies way beyond Hollywood, right? You, listening, you don't need to be a movie star. Whether you're, leading a tech team, designing something, managing people, the principles here are transferable.
Absolutely. Take that journalistic depth. For product design, maybe that means really digging into the human impact, not just the metrics. Whose story is your product serving? What assumptions are baked in?
Right. And that first lesson, choose projects or paths that align with your ethics, even the harder ones. That's basic ethical leadership, isn't it? Choosing sustainability over quick wins, maybe, or putting people first when values clash.
Then the second lesson. Use your platform, whatever it is, to lift up voices that aren't usually heard. If you lead a team, are you actively making space for different perspectives? Challenging the status quo internally? Your voice in a meeting is a platform.
And the third one, accountability. Stay accountable to who you serve or represent. Moura won't let Brazil become a cliche. You shouldn't simplify or disrespect your users, your team, your community. Authenticity and accountability, they go hand in hand.
The light of conscience. It's not some exclusive club. It's about consistently choosing depth, honesty over the easy way out. So maybe the question to leave you with is this. What truth might you be avoiding right now in your own work because it feels inconvenient? Thinking about that, well, the answer matters. Not just for your own path, but for the piece of the world you're helping to shape.